Hello, Professor. I'm Victor Cornejo, and today I'm going to talk about the project we worked on these last 5 weeks. The project is about modeling a suspension system for an automotive vehicle, specifically a 1/4 of a vehicle, which is one out of the four wheels on the car. In my team were three people, Juan Gonzalez, Oscar Limon, and myself. We get along very well and have excellent communication. 90% of the time, we are on top of our game and complement each other in terms of our skills. In this project, Juan and Oscar didn't understand much about suspensions, and since I love anything about cars and have extensive knowledge about them, I made sure they were up to speed with the topic. What we were not so aware of was the drawing board science behind the suspension dynamics. That was new even for me. But working as a community, we managed to make it work. As far as research, I had knowledge about suspension components, such as how they work in the car and how certain parameters affect the dynamics. What we did research was suspension dynamics in mathematical language. Usually the theory is learned before the practical application, but in my case, knowing about the practical side first made the theory easier to digest. Next was learning how to take all of this theory and simulate it in the computer using MATLAB's Simulink. Now, nearly every vehicle suspension out there has the same components: a spring that absorbs the impact, a damper that controls the movement of the spring, and either one or two control arms that hold the wheel to the car. There are three types of suspension systems on the market. There's passive, fully active, and semi-active. Passive suspension is the most common system out there. It will absorb every bump on the road the same way. It has a fixed spring constant and a fixed damping constant. And it will make you choose between a soft but less stable ride or a stiff but super stable ride. In other words, you choose between a comfy Rolls-Royce or a super stable race car. Semi-active suspension share the same components as the passive suspension, but adds along a bunch of sensors that read road conditions and other vehicle parameters, and will adjust the damping accordingly. Only the damping will make it stiffer or softer. Fully active suspension takes it to a whole new level. It regulates the damping and also exerts its own forces to cancel out the road conditions, making it feel like you're riding on a cloud. Now it's modeling time. First, we identified our parameters and our variables for a passive system. Our constants were the vehicle's sprung and unsprung mass, the tires and suspension's spring constants, and the damping constant. Our variables were the movements of the sprung mass, the unsprung mass, and the road profile. Next, we proposed the dynamics equations, and finally, we simulated the equations with blocks and Simulink. With this simulation, these were the results we obtained. The graphs indicate the movements of the car's body and suspension. As we can see, the suspension is not isolating much of the road's imperfections, and the body of the car moves quite a bit. With an active or semi-active system, those big peaks would get smoothed out and the graph would look more flat. This means the suspension would be canceling almost all of the road's imperfections, keeping the car very stable. The model for these suspensions would look like this. We have the fully active and the semi-active. We have the fully active on my left, which adds an extra actuator. You can see the third component. The semi-active works only on the shock absorber, the damper, and regulates the valving and how stiff or how soft it is. In this work, I was in charge of explaining the suspension system to my teammates so we could all be on the same page. and also build the Simulink block model. Everything else was done as a team, especially the equations, since 3 brains work better than a single brain. Thank you.